Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr. I'm pleased that you're joining me and one another for this streaming Shabbat service. This is a time for us to pause, to catch our breath, to think about where we've been and where we're going. For the days flow into one another without interruption. Time races on. The Sabbath is our means to divert time, a stepping off point, pausing with friends and loved ones to observe, then rejoice in the wonder-filled coincidence of living. There can be a sense of pleasure in every given breath, blessed with taste to savor and warmth to give and to receive. Bestowed with gifts of sight and sound, we are obliged to cherish and revel in each smile, in every musical note. The Sabbath also awakens us to the silence between notes. It speaks of contemplation, the quiet delight of literature, of unhurried walks, of rare conversation. The Sabbath can be our interlude, our ritual pause of this lively current, our signal to step more lightly, to appreciate more profoundly, to dive more deeply into the questions that life is asking. Again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, Congregation Beth Adam. That's our bricks and mortar congregation here in Loveland, Ohio. That's part of Greater Cincinnati. And Our Jewish Community, which is our online initiative. We've been online for 14 years. We were online when people thought we were crazy. They said, why would you ever do it? What's the value of the internet? Well, people have come to understand and appreciate that being online allows us to create community literally around the world. And during the pandemic, when we were socially distancing, it allowed us to stay connected with one another. And today, even as the pandemic is receding and we're coming back together here in our building, being online still affords us an important opportunity to remain connected with our friends and members of our community around the world. So being online is really valuable, but it's not the point. It's not the reason. It's a tool that allows us to give expression to the Judaism that we have given voice to here at Congregation Beth Adam for over 40 years. A bold, dynamic Judaism. A Judaism that is reflective of who we are, not who our ancestors were. They created a Judaism and a and services that were reflected of their mindset, of the world that they knew, of their understandings. And we have that same right. And I would also say responsibility. We have a responsibility to create a dynamic Judaism, a new Judaism, a Judaism that speaks to who we are, and a Judaism that we can hand to the next generation that deals with the complexity of the world we're living in today. And you're part of it by being here with us for this streaming service. Being online is great because it affords us multiple possibilities. You can chat while the service is going on. I know the folks in bethadam.org are doing that regularly. They like to talk with one another during services. I know people like to leave messages on our Facebook page. It's always great. It's always great to know where you're participating from. It also means you don't have to watch the service at 7 o'clock. You can watch it when it's convenient. You can watch it after it's been posted. You can watch it in our archive. It also means you can watch services from a couple weeks ago if you missed them and you're interested. And it also means that I can have a conversation with somebody and bring it into our service. And I'm going to do that tonight. And I'll explain that in a moment. But first, let's light the Shabbat candles. The candles of Shabbat stand before us, waiting to meet the flame, longing to share their warmth, ready to shed their light. Like those who came before us, like all people, we find comfort and fear and flame, endless swirl of fascination, mystery and awe. Like those who came before us, like all people, we are graced with the desire and the will to understand. So we continue our ancestors' search for answers, pushing away the darkness of ignorance. The flames they saw as magic and beyond comprehension became flames of knowledge and hope. But still, we look with wonder, inspired by their beauty and their power. We embrace the flames of Shabbat. We embrace the light, our vessel of mystery and understanding. As we light our Shabbat candles, we celebrate our journey, our quest, our moments of peace. May the light of our people shine. May the light of the Shabbat cast its warmth in our homes. May these candles burn with respect for all who push beyond the bonds of ignorance, for all who seek justice, for all who build community. May these candles burn with memory of all who came before us. May we draw on the many ways our people have given voice to their ideas and their values. And may we add our own insight to their glow. Baruch or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch or ba'adam, blessed is the light within each person. Baruch or ba'Shabbat, blessed is the light of the Sabbath. At this moment, we come together. We take pause. We breathe in life and reflect on the importance of each of our lives. We feel the touch of the spirit of the body, the warmth of fellow human beings. We embrace our uniqueness and our diversity, our capacity to create and to explore and to change our world. So I'm very excited to share the conversation that I had with Jonathan Kessler. It's a conversation about an organization that he started and about what's going on in Israel today. I am delighted that Jonathan Kessler has joined us this evening for this service. I want to introduce Jonathan before I begin asking him questions. He is a thought leader, and he's through assembling thinkers together to create intercommunal alliances. For 18 years, he was on AIPAC's senior staff. He previously served as the executive director of the Center for Middle East Peace. He was executive director or editor of Middle East Insight magazine, president of a consulting firm that dealt in Middle East public policy. He's been on MSNBC, CNN, C-SPAN, and Voice of America as an analyst. He's also been on the executive board of Seeds of Peace, board of directors for Mazon, a Jewish Response to Hunger, and Panim, Institute for Jewish Leadership and Value. So Jonathan has an incredible wealth of experience. So Jonathan, thank you for joining us this evening. I appreciate it. And
it's a great honor. Thank you for having me, Rabbi.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And you started a new organization, which I think is a Jewish thing to do, right? We Jews, we create organizations. It's called Heart of a Nation. So could you talk about how all your vast experience in the Middle East and all the issues around diplomacy and what was going on led you to conceive of and then create this new organization?
Well, all the work I've ever been engaged in, my entire professional life, has focused on the importance of relationships, maintaining them, strengthening them, forging new relationships, new alliances between individuals, between cultures, between societies, between nations. The first work I ever did focused on strengthening the relationship between Israel and the American Jewish community. Then I focused on the U.S.-Israel relationship, and for about half my career, focused on the relationship between Israel and her neighbors, the Palestinians, the Jordanians, the Egyptians, the Syrians, the Lebanese, the Saudis, and other countries in the Gulf. And for me, I don't really feel my career has ever been defined in terms of left-wing politics or right-wing politics or even centrist politics, but rather the value of relationships. And Heart of a Nation is an organization I launched just 2 years ago because of distancing, because American Jews were distancing themselves from Israel. Young Israelis were distancing themselves from some of the progressive values that we hold most dear. Young Palestinians were distancing themselves from the prospects of a negotiated settlement to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And I conceived of a new organization, a new community of purpose that would literally bring together emerging change makers from those three societies, Americans, Israelis, and Palestinians, who wanted to improve their societies by improving their political cultures.
Mm-hmm. And so it's 2 years, so it's relatively new. What have you seen in the 2 years? What's the response been from those three different demographics, and what's been the response from what I would call the organized Jewish community that may welcome something new or may be hesitant to welcome something new?
Well, it's a beautifully phrased question, and it's fun to reflect back on the last 2 years where we had a chance to pressure test all of our assumptions. So first of all, I don't think I've ever been involved in as eclectic a field of work as I am now. Today alone, in addition to speaking to you, I've been in contact with Israeli high-tech leaders that are very anxious about the goings on within Israel and how it's impacting Washington and the American Jewish community. I ran a 90-minute leadership skills workshop for 30 Palestinian teens who live in Gaza. I spoke to the New York Times, and this afternoon I'll be meeting with members of my own board who are excited about launching an international leadership academy called Horizon of Hope Academy, which will bring young changemakers from the three societies into close proximity. So I'm not going to say that's an average day, because these aren't average times. These aren't normal times. But I think that the launch was well timed for three reasons. One, I've spent 6 decades building personal relationships and was able to turn to 60 of my closest friends who immediately joined me in this endeavor: Israelis, Palestinians, and Americans, most of whom hold positions of leadership within their own organizations. Second, this is a moment of enormous liminality and transition. And for those of us who are looking to progress our societies and to move ideas and to bring people together, we generally deal with two states of affairs. One I describe as frozen, and the other I describe as anything but frozen. And when you're in a moment of liminality between the frozenness and the coming undone of the frozenness, there are opportunities that don't exist on a regular basis. And third, I mentioned pressure testing assumptions, and you talked part of a nation is bring together thought leaders, and that was exactly where we put about 85% of our time and resources when we launched. Thought leaders. We wanted to bring together the people that could move ideas. Well, the fact is they were not nearly as receptive as young people, for all sorts of reasons. But young people, including teenagers, were incredibly interested in this new concept, this new paradigm, this new platform. And I think I've come to understand why. First, young people in all three societies recognize that their politics is stuck.
Right.
And I could use other words that they use to describe it, but I think you know what I'm conveying. They are frustrated. They are disappointed. They're on the verge of despondency. And Heart of a Nation to them was like it was like throwing them a life preserver. We realized that by validating and steering the dissatisfaction of young people in these three societies that can't quit each other, we have a natural constituency. Mm-hmm. So we launched an international teen essay competition. And we got Christian Science Monitor, Jerusalem Post, and Al-Quds, the largest of the Palestinian dailies, to embrace it and to promote it. And we realized early on that the judges of the teen essays should not look like you and me, Rabbi. They shouldn't be older, white, Jewish guys. They should be the teens. And we put together a group of judges, 4 teens from each of the three societies, a total of 12 judges. Now, to help you understand just how exciting it was to work with this group of 12 teenagers, the 4 young Palestinians came from 4 different segments of Palestinian society. One was from the Gaza Strip, one from Hebron, one from Ramallah, one from al-Fahim within Israel proper. The Israelis came from north, south, east, and west. The Americans, Jews and non-Jews, came from all of the United States, and they had to figure out how to put this competition together, how to judge the essays. And the essay question was, what do you most want to fix about your own society and how? And it became an opportunity for a great leveling of the power asymmetries that are built into the relationship between the three societies. And when we finished this, and the essays were published in those three publications, the young people asked, what's next?
Wow. So if people wanted, if they wanted to read, if folks want to read those essays, if they type in Heart of the Nation, they could find them?
I recommend the easiest, there are two ways. You go to our website, which is heartofthenation.io, www.heartofthenation.io, or I happen to know that the Christian Science Monitor has kept all of the winning essays available online. But start with Heart of a Nation, because I think it's even possible to access the Christian Science Monitor compendium through our website.
That's one of the people wanted to see that. And then, so is the hope that by bringing these three groups together, that they become the leaders of change in the future, that they're inheriting the problems of their parents, grandparents, and that you're trying to get them to come together to figure out how they're going to find a solution?
Yeah, I think that's well put. First, we have to protect them from their jaded peers and from the political tumult that's actually existing in all three societies. It's not just in Israel. It's in Israel, it's in the Palestinian territories, it's in the United States. And again, I'm not sure that bringing these three groups of emerging change makers was always as easy as it is today. And the one thing everyone recognizes is that their politics are stuck, and we want to protect them. I mean, in a sense, with some presumption, we're trying to create a citadel in a raging stream. We're trying to create a Yavna so that we can preserve a horizon of hope. Second, we're not forcing the young people from these three societies to work together. In fact, our vision is to create an academy that emulates the parallel play we see in a sandbox, where young children derive inspiration from each other even before they're prepared to work together. Imagine a sandbox where the Americans, Israelis, and Palestinians are in three of the corners and Heart of a Nation's in the fourth.
Got it.
But by looking at a 3-year timeline, we can allow for these young people to connect with each other, to derive validation from each other's efforts, and then to focus in their own respective societies. This is not a peace building program per se, but we do believe that shared society and peace building may very well be a result of bringing these young change makers together.
Okay, it's amazing what you're doing, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
Do you think there's time?
It's exciting. I believe that we started out looking at young people as maybe 15% of our focus, and I would say that today it's over 75%.
That's great, but I hate to sort of put a damper on it. Do you think there's time, given what's going on in Israel right now? And this is the politics of the world we now live in, the Netanyahu government. I mean, there have been multiple articles written in the United States. Rabbis are giving sermons, articles in Israel about the fact that what seems to be happening under the current coalition government is that it very conceivable that the democracy of Israel is going to be undermined, and that the entire relationship between within Israel is being frayed. What, 200,000 people are marching, more than that. American Jews, leaders who've stood with Israel shoulder to shoulder for decades, are now standing up and saying, I'm beginning to wonder if I can. Rabbis are getting up, giving sermons that begin with, I know what I say is going to upset you. How long, I mean, you've been in this world, how long do you think this can hold together before it frays so much that even the work that you're doing doesn't have a chance to really come to fruition?
Well, as Jews and as Americans, we have the advantage of studying history. Israel is approaching its 75th birthday. America at 75 was in a disastrous place by every reasonable standard. Democracy was uncertain and certainly threatened. It was the time in America just before the Civil War. Human beings were still being bought and bred and sold. Women had no rights whatsoever. The indigenous population was imperiled. There were no fixed national borders. There was no sense of national purpose. That was America at 75. Israel at 75 is not nearly as precariously perched as America was. We have to believe in the notion that nations, countries, societies are works in progress. And we have to do everything in our power to keep the center together. That's why Heart of a Nation was essentially made for these rough seas. There's so many issues that are going to be on people's minds in the weeks and months and years ahead. First, what kind of society will Israel be? What will the nature of Israeli society be? We've seen the first 75 years of that remarkable country. Now it's time to focus on the next 75 years. We in America are not mere spectators. And the reason that you see so many rabbis and columnists weighing in is because they recognize that this is not something for them to sit on the sidelines and observe.
Right. I mean, it feels like there's more energy. And I think as a rabbi, and I've sat with my colleagues, up until now, many colleagues, I mean, it was like talking about Israel as the third rail oftentimes, because no matter what you say, if you talk about the occupation, if you talk about what's happening in Gaza, the treatment of Palestinians or Arabs within the Israeli culture, people get upset when you point out the deficits. People say, why don't you talk about, startup nation and all that? And if you only talk about startup nation, then people say, why aren't you talking about the problems? I mean, we're living at a time when even dialogue, an honest dialogue or an honest assessment is very hard pressed.
Right. Well, first of all, discomfort has always been part of the discourse within Israel proper. Mm-hmm. And it's reflected in their newspapers far more than the newspapers that we as American Jews rely on. The simple fact is that we're going to have to become more comfortable with discomfort. We're talking about the creation of the Third Jewish Commonwealth. I think the biggest mistake ever made was declaring that Israel was created in 1948, that the modern state of Israel came into being in 1948. No, it's still coming into being. The fact is, you probably need more than 100 years to create a new modern country, which means that we're 3/4 of the way, and we're facing not one but several crises. And all the issues will be up for debate. All the issues will become conflated. There was a very compelling piece written, as you know, by Danny Gordis and Yossi Klein Halevi and others, which focused very much on the issue of democracy within Israel proper. But a few days later, there was an equally compelling piece that appeared in another publication, Marty Peretz, Leon Wieseltier, and others, talking not only about democracy within Israel proper, but democracy within all of the lands that Israel administers.
Right.
And people that began marching in the streets on one issue are beginning to understand how the question of democracy brings in the issue of non-Jewish Israelis, Arab and Palestinian citizens of Israel. It brings into question the treatment and rules and regulations with regard to the Palestinians in the West Bank territories, even the relationship between Israel and the Palestinians in the Gaza territories. Israel's never had a constitution.
Right.
Israel is still trying to figure out what it means to be both Jewish and democratic. I was asked to put together a curriculum for a community this week, and the first of the 4 units is called Committed and Conflicted. Not committed or conflicted, but more Jewishly, if you will, committed and conflicted. The second unit will be called Embracing Complexity. The third unit involves affinity and advocacy. And one of the things we're playing with are titles of 2 books, one that came out in 1978 called We Are One, and one that came out last year with the title We Are Not One.
Right.
This is a teachable moment. This is what rabbis were created to do.
Thank you. I appreciate
those of us who feel part of the Jewish people. This is our moment.
Well, I really appreciate it. We have to end. This is, Jonathan, I so much value what you're doing. I appreciate you taking the time out of obviously an incredibly busy day. It's exciting to see somebody who's trying to find threads to create something new and different, and working with new groups and trying to think about this problem in new and different ways. It is a challenge that we face, and I think it is incumbent upon all of us to be involved, that we can't sit on the sidelines any longer. And clearly, you've never been on the sidelines. You're right in the midst of it. And it's great we have leaders like you doing this kind of difficult work. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. And you know, I very much enjoyed being with you in Cincinnati, and I look forward to coming back and being with your congregation.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Be well.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed having that conversation with Jonathan about the organization he started, about what's happening in Israel today. We all need to pay attention. We all need to learn about what's happening. We all need to give voice to our concerns and our hopes. We continue now with the sharing of wine. Life is a wondrous gift. The mind observes with awe, and appreciation flows from the heart. Life's joyful bounties are unveiled. Such treasures abound in ordinary moments. A familiar face, the simplicity of a smile, tender kisses, the warmth and security of a hug, enchanting melodies, the grace of dance, the coolness of sculpted marble. A remarkable story. The complexity of atomic structure, thunder's reverberation, the shimmering of the rainbow, intoxicating rose petals. These moments become opportunities to affirm that which is good. As we lift the cup, a tribute to life's enchantments, may we find joy and contentment in our human endeavors. Bruchim chachayim ba'olam. Blessed is the life within the world. Bruchim chachayim ba'adam. Blessed is the life within each person. And we say, l'chaim, to life. I encourage you to go to bethadam.org. That's Congregation Beth Adam's website, bethadam.org. There you'll find a calendar of our upcoming events, adult education, my podcast. There are resources. Passover's coming up. We have a big Passover resource section. Go take a look at that. And if you need Haggadahs, you can contact the congregational office. So I look forward to sharing more Shabbats with you in the weeks and months ahead. And we close with the words we close with each week. May we know blessings those who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. May the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. May we know blessings to the day, and may we know blessings to the night. May health be for our children and for all people, and all things soon be right. May we know blessings at our comings. May we know blessings when we depart. May we live each day with peace and wisdom in each heart. Ken Yehi, let it be. Shabbat Shalom.